One of the questions I get asked the most is, how do I win with a bad support? What do I do when my support is feeding? How do I win when my support is useless? There is no one-size-fits-all answer to this question, so I'm going to run you through a few scenarios where my support was performing suboptimally while playing in low elo and how I dealt with that. In this first clip, I get a decent base off, and while I'm walking back into lane, Seraphine randomly gets caught and dies for no reason. This is after she had already died for no reason in a level 1 invade, so really not doing so great. But then as I get into lane, Ezreal randomly ease into me to try and force a trade, but it's a terrible trade. Senna is nowhere near to me and can't follow it up, and I have a massive wave walking with me to win the trade. As Ezreal retreats, Senna also doesn't take the quickest pathing to me either, meaning I get to proc my PT and land one extra auto, without Senna even being able to hit me at all. Both of them made big mistakes here. Ezreal forced a terrible trade, and Senna made it even worse by seemingly making no attempt to lessen the damage, but walking up to me to hit me in return. Now Ezreal is half HP, even though I'm in a 1v2. My support has no impact because she's literally not in the lane, but I'm able to gain an advantage anyway, without needing any crazy mechanical outplays. A little bit later, as I'm lost hitting under turret, Seraphine walks up and AFKs in front of the turret, letting them chunk her out for 80% of her HP for no reason. The one thing she does right is throw out the double E right before running away, which helps me punish them using all of their cooldowns on Seraphine by walking up and chunking Ezreal out with a PTA proc again. Now he's down to 20% HP, and Senna also loses some unnecessary HP while spending too long trying to trade back onto me. Finally, I get a crit Q bounce onto Senna, and Seraphine also lands a double Q onto her to leave her at a quarter HP. Now we are currently in a winning position, because although Seraphine is still massively chunked from walking up and taking all that damage for no reason, I've also almost single-handedly punished both of the enemies while being close to full HP myself. Although Seraphine has made some good moves like hitting a double E and a double Q, it nowhere near outweighs the absurd way she got massively chunked low HP to begin with. But despite that, we still find ourselves in a winning position anyway. Shortly after, Senna lands another W on Seraphine, but gets greedy having thoughts of following up on it despite how safely positioned Seraphine is and how overextended Senna is. I punish it by chunking even more of Senna's HP. Ezreal saves her life by using heal, but there's absolutely nothing to trade or poke me back, leaving it an isolated one-on-one trade where Senna almost can't hit me back at all because she's too busy running for her life. At this point, Ezreal decides to base off screen. I've successfully forced him to base while laning with a support whose HP was permanently at 20% HP for the moment she entered lane. When Ezreal gets back into lane, Seraphine goes to help Amumu do Drake, but I stay in lane continuing to poke Ezreal under turret 1v2, and feel pretty safe doing so because Senna's HP and mana are so low since she didn't base. When I take a turret shot, Ezreal decides to try and capitalize on it by forcing a fight 1v2, and I retreat deep into my wave before turning to exhaust and fight him back. I win the fight even 1v2 because I have better item components and a minion wave on my side, while he can't hit Qs through the wave. I then continue trading onto Senna just until I'm 2 autos away from dying before retreating out of her range and letting my minions continue chunking her. Once my minions chunk her for 70 more damage and I've reset my passive on minions, I flash onto her with Q auto, which bursts her before she has a chance to hit me back, earning me the 1v2 double kill and the shutdown from the 2 kills she'd received from Seraphine. By the end of this whole ordeal, you could almost forget that my support had been playing terribly because her plays had never had severe consequences beyond losing her HP, besides the one time that she died when I wasn't in lane to save her. At every point that she made a mistake, the enemies would in turn make mistakes, punishing her, and even when I was left laning 1v2, I would still win those trades because of how hard the opponents misplayed those trades as well. There were no crazy mechanical outplays, I just simply traded when it was good and backed off when it was bad. If I were a worse player, however, I either don't take this trade against Ezreal when he jumps in, or don't squeeze out as much damage as possible during the trade, and he doesn't get punished for his bad play. I don't go aggressive on them when I see them using all of their cooldowns on Seraphine, so I'm not in position to punish them when Seraphine lets her root. I don't force Ezreal's heal when I punish Senna overextending, trying to finish off Seraphine. I don't take the 1v2 fight in my minion wave knowing they like the damage to kill me there, and I most certainly don't turn it into a double by abusing the minion aggro on Senna. If I'm not aware of these opportunities and don't take advantage of them, then I'm gonna probably think that Seraphine played absolutely terribly and made the lane completely unplayable for me, when only one of those things is true. She did make the lane harder than it needed to be, but it was absolutely playable, and it didn't even look hard because it wasn't. In this clip, Brand gets caught in a silly way, only hitting Jinx with E and Q when he could have at least ulted her and made the fight much easier. As Jinx finishes Brand, I root her and chunk her out with the purple Q and green Q combo, and proceed to fight Zyra as she chases me into my wave, with Jinx still too far away to make it a 1v2 yet. Thanks to the minion aggro, she ends up falling and I narrowly kill Jinx too as she panics and tries to W instead of finishing me off with an auto. Finally, this turns the lane definitely into our favor, and it all starts with Brand getting ridiculously caught without even using W or ult. Once again, I am able to massively chunk out someone who's in the middle of killing my support, and this is what sets up the rest of the play to be possible, without needing any mechanical plays. From that point on, I got hit by almost everything, including 3 Zyra Qs, 1 Zyra E, and 1 Zyra ult, only avoiding a Jinx W and the knockup from Zyra ult. Despite the way I played that fight being nothing out of the ordinary mechanically, it's still able to be turned into a 1v2 outplay because I allowed Zyra to chase me into my own wave and avoid the only thing I really desperately needed to avoid, the Zyra ult knockup. Although it's really lucky for me that Jinx messed up as hard as she did at the end, it's important to note that the fight was only this close to begin with because of doing everything right beforehand. If I don't capitalize on Jinx killing Brand as an opportunity to massively chunk her out, she can mess up as hard as she wants and she still never lose that fight at the end. In this next clip, me and Lauren are both doing an okay job of harassing the enemies, until Lauren messes up a combo that would have probably killed Caitlyn, and ends up getting CC'd under turret and dying without doing anything instead. In the aftermath though, they don't have the HP to engage on me and can only try and harass me. I do a really good job of isolating them during the trades, engaging briefly onto Renata before backing off and killing Caitlyn from out of her range, before autoing Renata while she's isolated again, and then slightly chunking both of them with an E cost. The whole time, I know I don't win 1v2 trades, but I take every opening I can to briefly trade onto Renata and stay away from Caitlyn's superior auto range and only hit her with Q. By the end of the trade, I've taken 106 damage, but dealt 113 damage to Renata and 108 damage to Caitlyn. It's not much, but about the best I can do in my 1v2 scenario without the enemy bot lane colossally screwing up. When Owen gets back into lane, he engages and we get a Kayn gank shortly after. Thanks to Kayn's help, I'm able to flash onto Renata to finish her off with only about 10 to 20 overkill damage, meaning that if she'd been 113 HP healthier, she definitely would have not died. Then Owen lands a knockup onto Caitlyn and once again dies to the turret, but this time it at least sets up me to go aggressive onto Caitlyn and I kill her with exactly 0 overkill. My damage was exactly perfect enough to kill her, which is lucky because I would not have been able to land even one auto more without dying. Once again, this kill would not have happened were it not for the carefully played out trade after Ornn's initial death. I of course had no idea at the time that my trade would turn out to be so hugely significant, but I did it anyway just because I could. As a player, you need to be actively seeking out any tiny advantages you can over your opponents because you never know which could be the difference maker. To get this double kill and to escape it with my life, I needed to both not let up the aggression just because I was alone 1v2, and also not play so carelessly that I would lose too much of my already low HP. In this clip I start channeling my recall just as Morgana overstays, gets caught and loses 80% of her HP. This is a big mistake, but one that I know just at a glance shouldn't actually cost her her life, as I cancel my recall to stop the enemies chasing her to death. As Caitlyn commits E and Q to trying to finish off Morgana, I realize that they've committed too many cooldowns onto my support and I can just turn on them 1v2 with a clear ult shot I have on Caitlyn, as she has no escapes and no tools to win the fight with even in a 1v2. Morgana lives with over 100 HP to spare while Caitlyn dies in what would be a clean 1-for-0 trade if not for the Veigar roam forcing me to kill Shen before I inevitably die. Still in a worthwhile 2-for-1 trade. Now in this clip there was pretty much no chance Morgana would die. I would bet that the average player would cancel the recall and save her here. That was nothing special. But the average player would not have identified Morgana getting caught and bidding so many cooldowns as an opportunity to 1v2 and kill the opposing ADC. Their support doesn't die here, but they don't benefit from the situation either. They just get their recall cancelled and have a shitty base. Morgana made a mistake in getting caught and losing all that HP, but the enemies made an even bigger mistake in thinking that they could actually kill her for it. It's important to be able to identify that in the moment and punish it appropriately. This next clip is very similar to the last one. My support Twisted Fate randomly gets caught under turret and loses all of his HP, and the enemy bot lane again makes the mistake of thinking that the appropriate punishment is to kill him rather than just leave him on 20% HP, despite me being right in their face as a Zeri with everything up. It might even have worked too if not for Senna continuing to step forwards while TF is already dying to ignite, and the clip turns into an easy double kill from there. We've now reviewed 5 different instances of my supports getting caught by either losing most of their HP or straight up dying, in ways that are just clear massive support gaps, and yet I'm still able to consistently turn the fights around in my favor. It didn't take near impossible script-like mechanics to get those results either. I was just quick at identifying mistakes the enemies were making before, after, and during killing my supports, and punishing them as best as I could. No two fights are ever the same, but if we were to try to identify a pattern in some of the mistakes that were allowing me to turn the fights around, the biggest thing that stands out to me is that often when one of my supports got caught, the enemies got baited into using all of their cooldowns onto them. This is fine if you're going to disengage afterwards, but it's a big mistake to take on extended fights where all of your cooldowns are being used on the support. If you've seen that one video of mine where I emphasize the need to focus your cooldowns on the carry in fights, and if not then I'll provide a link to that in the description, then you might understand why it was so easy for some of those fights to be turned around. Although the enemy's damage may have landed on my support faster than my damage landed onto them, my damage was at least landing on the more appropriate target. And depending on other factors, this can be enough to turn around a fight that started in unfavorable circumstances, such as your support getting caught and losing all of their HP for absolutely no reason. Another trend is that when my support was off the table for one reason or another, opponents would get overconfident and chase me into my wave. Minions can deal a lot of damage in early fights, and if you're starting off with an HP advantage on top of that, a 2v1 may not be as favorable for the enemies as they think. But the main thing you need to take away is that when your support feels like they're dragging you down, you almost always still have options to get yourself a lead still, either before, during, or after your support's bad play. There's no point dwelling on your support's performance. Whether they're feeding or not, you should always be seeking to squeeze out any advantage you can get, and if you do it well enough, you will succeed regardless of how your support plays. So my answer for the question, how do I play when my support is feeding, is that you don't have to play any differently. Either way, you're seeking to punish any mistakes the opponents are making, and what you do is going to depend entirely on what those mistakes are, and often you will find that they will make mistakes you can exploit even as they're punishing your support's mistakes. And if they don't, then be patient and wait until they do. I hope you found this video helpful. Let me know what subjects you'd like to see me cover in future videos, and subscribe to keep up with all my other educational ADC content. Until next time, gamers.